How is everyone doing? This is Kim from Keynect, and we are back at it with another presentation into the complicated world of the freight business. You know what's wild? I was talking to an owner-operator out of Houston last February. Guy's been running for 15 years, mostly Texas to Florida, occasionally up through the Carolinas. Real solid operator. And he calls me from somewhere outside Indianapolis, absolutely losing it because his truck won't start. His fuel's turned to jelly, and he's got a reefer load that's due in Chicago in 6 hours. Here's the thing. This guy wasn't unprepared because he was lazy or stupid. He was unprepared because nobody ever told him what winter actually does to a truck when you're used to running in 80-degree weather 9 months a year. So today, we're going to talk about the 3 winter nightmares that catch Southern truckers off guard every single season. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to handle them before they turn into $1,000 problems.
Let's be real for a second. If you're running out of Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, you spend most of your year in shorts and a t-shirt. Your truck sits in 95-degree heat. You're worried about overheating, not freezing. But then, November hits, and suddenly your dispatchers got you running freight to Milwaukee, or Detroit, or worse, Fargo. And you're thinking, yeah, it'll be cold, I'll bring a jacket. That's not how this works. I watched this play out with an owner-op named Marcus. Ran a beautiful Peterbilt out of Atlanta. Primarily Southeast Regional. He knew those lanes like the back of his hand. Then he got an opportunity for a high-paying load to Minnesota. Good money. Really good money. And Marcus figured, how bad could it be? He found out exactly how bad at a rest stop in Iowa when the temperature dropped to 8 degrees and his world started falling apart. That one trip taught him more about winter trucking than the previous 10 years combined. All right, first nightmare. Van sweat. And if you've never dealt with this, you're gonna think it sounds minor until it costs you $3,000 in damaged freight claims. Here's what happens. You load up in Miami, it's 85 degrees, humid as hell. Your cargo's been sitting in a warehouse that's basically a sauna. Then you drive north. The temperature drops to 20 degrees. And suddenly, all that moisture in your trailer has nowhere to go, so it condenses on the inside of your van walls. Now you've got water literally raining inside your trailer. Onto your boxes, onto your pallets, onto whatever you're hauling. Marcus, the guy I mentioned, was hauling electronics. High-value stuff. By the time he got to Minneapolis and opened his doors, half the boxes had water damage. The receiver rejected the load. His insurance claim got denied because failure to control trailer environment isn't covered. He ate the whole loss. But here's where it gets interesting. After that disaster, Marcus didn't just shrug it off. He called 3 veteran drivers who'd been running the northern lanes for years, and they walked him through the solution. The fix for van sweat isn't complicated, but it requires thinking ahead. First, desiccant packs. Those moisture absorber things you can buy at truck stops. Not sexy, not expensive, but they work. Throw several in your trailer before you load. Second, if you're hauling anything valuable or moisture sensitive, request blanket wrapping or ask about shrink wrapping pallets. Creates a barrier between the freight and the condensation. Third, and this sounds weird, crack your doors slightly when you're parked at rest stops. Let some of that trapped air circulate. Not wide open, obviously, but enough for airflow. Fourth, if you can control your route, try to transition temperatures gradually. Don't go from 80 to 20 in 6 hours if you can help it. After Marcus learned this stuff, he never had another moisture claim. More importantly, he started getting repeat customers for northern runs because word got around that he actually knew how to protect freight in winter. That one painful lesson turned into a competitive advantage. Okay, nightmare number 2. And this one will absolutely ruin your day. Diesel fuel gels when it gets cold. Not kinda thick. I mean, it literally turns into a gel that won't flow through your fuel lines. And it happens faster than you think. Most summer diesel starts having problems around 15 degrees. By the time you hit 0, you're basically trying to pump Jell-O through your fuel system. Now, Marcus learned about van sweat the hard way. But gelled fuel? That's the one that left him stranded for 8 hours in Iowa. He'd filled up in Oklahoma. Nice warm day, no worries. Drove through the night. Stopped at a rest area around 4 a.m. to grab some sleep. Temperature overnight dropped to 5 degrees. When he went to start the truck 6 hours later, nothing. The engine would turn over, but it wouldn't catch. His fuel filter was completely clogged with gelled diesel. 8 hours. That's how long he sat there waiting for a mobile mechanic to come thaw his fuel system and replace his filters. 8 hours while his delivery window came and went. The customer refused the late delivery. Another load, another total loss. But you know what Marcus told me later? He said that sitting in that frozen parking lot, watching other trucks start up and roll out while his sat dead, was actually the moment everything clicked for him. Preventing gelled fuel is all about preparation. And honestly, it's not that expensive or complicated. First rule: once temperatures drop below freezing, make sure you're getting winter blend diesel. Most northern truck stops switch automatically, but if you're filling up in Texas or Arizona and heading north, ask. Just ask. Because that cheap fuel in Laredo will absolutely destroy your week in Wisconsin. Second, carry fuel additives. Anti-gel treatment. Throw it in your tank before the temperature drops, not after. It's like $10 a bottle and could save you thousands. Third, keep your fuel tanks above half full in winter. Less airspace means less condensation, and it's easier to keep the fuel warm. Fourth, in extreme cold, I'm talking below zero, you might need to idle overnight or use a fuel heater. Yeah, it burns fuel, but it's cheaper than an 8-hour mobile mechanic call. Fifth, replace your fuel filters before winter hits. Old filters clog faster when diesel starts to thicken. After that Iowa nightmare, Marcus bought a case of anti-gel and started treating his fuel every single time he filled up north of the Mason-Dixon line. He also started planning his routes to hit winter blend fuel stops. Never got stranded again. And here's the thing. Other drivers started asking him for advice, because Marcus went from that guy who doesn't know what he's doing in winter to that guy who's got his winter game dialed in. His identity as a driver changed. He wasn't just a Southeast regional guy anymore. He was an owner-operator who could run anywhere, any season, and deliver on time. All right, nightmare number 3. And this one's actually dangerous, not just expensive. Frozen brakes. Here's what happens. Your brake system has moisture in it. Always does. It's unavoidable. In warm weather, not a problem. But when temperatures drop below freezing, that moisture freezes. And when moisture freezes inside your brake chambers or air lines, your brakes can either lock up or, and this is worse, fail to engage properly. I've seen trucks sitting in parking lots with wheels completely frozen to the point where the driver can't move. I've also seen trucks rolling down the highway with brakes that won't hold because ice is interfering with the system. Marcus? Yeah, he dealt with this too. Third week of winter running, he's pulling into a delivery in Detroit. Goes to set his parking brake, and it won't fully engage. Truck starts rolling backward on a slight incline. He had to throw it in gear to stop himself from rolling into another truck. Scared him to death. And it should have. But this is where Marcus's transformation really completed itself. He didn't just fix the problem and move on. He sat down and made a checklist. A real checklist. Everything he'd learned from van sweat, gelled fuel, frozen brakes, he wrote it all down. Then he started running through that checklist before every single winter trip. Frozen brakes are preventable, but you've got to be religious about moisture management. First, drain your air tanks every single day in winter. End of the day, every day. That moisture sitting in your tanks will freeze overnight and cause problems in the morning. Second, make sure your air dryer is working. If you don't have one or it's old, consider upgrading. Air dryers pull moisture out before it gets into your system. Third, air system antifreeze. It's a thing. Ask about it at your mechanic. It won't hurt your system and it'll prevent ice buildup. Fourth, before you park in freezing weather, fan your brakes a few times. Use them lightly to heat them up and dry them out. Wet brakes plus freezing temps equals locked wheels in the morning. Fifth, if your brakes got wet, say you drove through slush or a car wash, and it's gonna freeze overnight, do not set your parking brake. Chalk your wheels instead. I know that sounds crazy, but a frozen parking brake is worse than no parking brake. Marcus now keeps a winter operations checklist in his cab. Drains air tanks, checks fuel treatment, inspects for condensation, takes an extra 5 minutes at the end of each day. And you know what? He hasn't had a single winter breakdown in 3 years. Here's what nobody tells you when they hand you your CDL. The difference between a driver who makes $60K a year and a driver who makes $100K often isn't skill or experience. It's versatility. If you can only run in good weather, in familiar lanes, in comfortable conditions, you're limiting your earning potential. But if you can handle winter, If you can run the northern lanes when other southern drivers are saying no thanks, you've got leverage. Marcus figured this out after that brutal first winter. Yeah, he lost money on those loads. Yeah, it was painful. But he didn't let it make him a Southeast-only driver for life. He leaned into the challenge. Now Marcus runs loads to Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan all winter long. And he gets paid premium rates because brokers know he's not going to call from a rest stop with a disabled truck. He built a reputation as the guy who delivers, regardless of weather. His outer journey? Revenue went up about 35% once he started taking winter loads year-round. His inner journey? He stopped seeing himself as a southern driver and started seeing himself as a professional owner-operator who could handle any lane, any season. That's the real transformation. Look, winter running isn't for everyone. And if you want to stay in Florida and Louisiana year-round, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're leaving money on the table because you're scared of frozen brake lines, that's a problem you can solve. Van sweat, gelled fuel, frozen brakes, these aren't mysteries. They're just things you haven't learned yet. And every owner-operator who runs the northern lanes successfully learned them the same way, either through painful, expensive mistakes or by listening to someone who already made those mistakes. Marcus chose the expensive education, but you don't have to. Get your winter prep checklist together, stock up on fuel additives, learn how to drain your air tanks, practice running gradual temperature transitions, and maybe, just maybe, take that Minnesota load when it comes across your board. Because there's a whole other level of income available to you if you're willing to get uncomfortable for a season. And honestly, once you've done it a few times, it's not even that bad. It's just different. Like and subscribe to this channel if you liked what you have seen so far, and until next time, stay safe out there.